Hi folks, John Cordisco back again. Another game from round one in the U.S. Junior Chess Championship 2016. Played at the beautiful Chess Club and Scholastic Center in St. Louis. This is the top 10 juniors in the United States under 21 years old. So let's get to it. It's a very interesting game. As white, Luke Velotti from Idaho, I believe, which is not a big chess state, I wouldn't think, so good for Luke. He's rated over 2,400. And Caden Troff. We all know Caden. He's got a lot of publicity in the last couple of years. He's also a GM at 2543. Let's get to it. Velotti is black. Troff is white. It's going to be a Grunfeld. We'll go through the opening a little bit here. Pretty much typical line in Grunfeld. I don't know if it's the main line or not. I'm not a Grunfeld player. Castles. I'm wondering here. I don't know a lot about Grunfeld. Maybe some of the Grunfeld players can comment. I'm looking at the computer off screen. And it likes A5 and E5 for black. The A5 I would understand. Maybe A5 plant the knight, but that can be easily stopped with pawn here. Queen to D6. And that's what Caden decided to play. King B1. I call it the Grandmaster move when he castle long like that. Rook D8. Pretty much standard stuff. Knight B5 just to harass the queen. The queen goes back to D7. Now, that temporarily stops this bishop from being developed. D5. And it looks like white is really pressing here. A6. Which I find very interesting. Very interesting indeed. Knight C3, backs the knight off. Queen E8. Queen to C1. I like Queen to C2 a little bit better. I'm not trying to be picky. I think that's a little more accurate. Knight A7. It's like Caden is reorganizing his forces here to attack white's queenside castling. They're not fully developed yet. Both players have a minor piece yet to be developed. Knight B5. Knight takes, pawn takes. Now, black got what he wanted. An open A file on the king. Bishop D4. Now this is an interesting shot. I think most of us as black in a second would play bishop takes D4. Probably knight takes D4. But this is very, very interesting shot here. Rook takes. Now, he doesn't play E takes D5, but if he did, this is what happens. If pawn takes, bishop checks. King moves. Rook takes, check. King takes. Queen checks. King has to come up here. And believe it or not, all of that is a draw. And so Velotti decided not to do that. Just plain old bishop takes. And after rook takes, queen takes, king takes. We're back to a small advantage for black. Now, Caden Troff is fairly high rated than Luke Velotti. A good 135 points. That's a lot at this level, especially in the junior level. Caden has been playing that well in this tournament. There's some other games that have been played so far. This game's a couple of days old. Queen takes C2. Excuse me, queen to C2, C6. Knight C1. e5. It's funny, both of them don't have the light squared bishops developed yet. Bishop e2 finally, queen e7, rook d1. Doesn't look like there's much fighting here, but to be honest with you, black has a pretty good advantage according to the computer. I like black's position. I think white's king is going to come up on World of Hurting here soon. Bishop b6, b3. Don't like weakening the pawns in front of your king, especially when attack is coming. If you want to make an off move, maybe queen c3, g3, besides to go b3. And I think that's going to cause him some grief. Knight d7. Now you see this knight. That's a really good defensive piece. Knights are always good defensive pieces, but you see that a lot. There's an old saying, if the knight is here and the king is here, if there's a knight on f8, you cannot mate. Well, it comes out the same for c1. Very good defensive pieces are knights. Knight d3, f6, rook c1, queen a3. Get that queen right down in his face. Now, of course, it looks like black's turning the heat up. Queen b2, just try to defuse everything. The queen comes back. Does not want to trade queens. Rook d1, c5. He's going to start the pawn push. Knight goes back to c1. Good spot for that knight. c4. He's going to bust up the pawns in front of white's king. B takes. Now, let's take a look at this. What would you do here? I think a lot of us would play pawn takes pawn almost immediately. What to do? What to do? I like knight c5. Queen f2 is interesting as well. He goes rook c8. And that dropped down his advantage tremendously. To give you an idea, prior to this, it was probably a point and a quarter. Now it's about a third of a pawn advantage for black. He just lost the thread of it. C takes. Now knight c5. Caden just messed up the move order. Queen b4. I think white is back in the game. Knight a4. Interesting though, b6. Bishop c4. Queen c. Bishop takes. Knight takes. I think white's okay there. After knight a4, queen e7, check. King comes up. Queen takes the bishop. Knight checks. King to a1. Not a good idea. King to c2 was much better, and after queen checks, king to d2, the king escapes. But after king to a1, he's in the corner. Knight takes. Queen checks. He's trying to get a perpetual. King g7. Queen d7 check. King h6. Finally takes the knight. Now, those you keeping score, it's two minor pieces and a pawn for a rook. And white now has about a point and a quarter advantage. Caden completely blew his attack. Queen to e3. King to b1. Now you're scrambling for a draw, which is horrible. If you're playing in a game and you really got a good attack going and you have a really good position, you might not be winning, but very close. And all of a sudden you make one screw up, and the tables are completely turned on you. Queen f2. Queen to d2 check. Pawn. Queen. And then knight to d3. Not a good move. Now the computer likes bishop to d1, but there's not a human on earth that would play that. I'm sorry. Queen to d3, I think, is probably better. But after knight to d3, all of a sudden now it jumps back to a small advantage for black. Queen to g1 check. Queen takes. Knight c1. Rook takes c1. And that's where they agreed to a draw. What would happen is king takes. Queen takes. Very complicated ending. But I thought it was a very interesting game. It's one of those games, especially with juniors, even at this high level, international master and a grandmaster level. And they go back and forth. And they're kind of like me and a lot of us. They let their emotions pretty much run their game. And as the game is going on and you're in the battle and you're doing really well and things turn against you, sometimes they go in the poker to go tilt. And you'll make bad move after bad move. And so I thought it was an interesting game. A lot of pressure on these young guys. But anyway, folks, that's one of the games from round 1 of the U.S. Junior Chess Championship 2016. I hope you enjoyed it. I want you all to remember, if you think chess is just a game, you're not playing it right. Take care, folks. Bye-bye.